Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I was halfway through changing the oil in the Corolla when the phone rang with a number my brain didn't recognize but my stomach did. There's a tone to calls that matter, even before you pick up. I wiped my hands on a shop towel that was already more stained than cloth and answered. "Mr. Wilson?" a woman said. Calm voice, brisk edges. "This is Street. Mary's Hospital. Your wife, Linda, listed you as her emergency contact." I stood up so fast I hit the underside of the hood. "Is she? What happened?" "She's stable," the woman said. "She felt faint at a cafe down the street and came in with chest tightness. We're running tests. She's asked that we call you." Chest tightness. Stable. My hands started doing things without me, closing the oil cap, lowering the hood, grabbing the keys off the pegboard like I was afraid the house would change the locks on me if I didn't move. Chloe's Civic wasn't in the driveway, she was at her campus job in the library. I sent a quick text, "Mom's at Street. Mary's. She's okay. I'm going now." Then I pulled onto Maple and tried to keep the car between the lines and my thoughts out of the future. Linda fainting wasn't unheard of. She runs low blood sugar, low blood pressure, low tolerance for summer heat. She's the kind of person who keeps almonds in her bag and tells other people to drink water. But chest tightness on a Wednesday afternoon felt like a plot twist we hadn't rehearsed. The hospital was having one of those days where everyone wears the same expression, tired, but professionally so. I parked in the structure where the signs lie about how many spaces are left and jogged to the ER doors, trying to make my brain remember the last time Linda had looked pale in a way that wasn't just bad lighting. "Hi, I'm Mark Wilson," I told the desk clerk. "My wife, Linda, came in." The clerk glanced at the screen, nodded at something only she could see, and put a phone to her ear. "He's here," she said. Then to me, "Have a seat, they'll take you back." Her name tag said Maria in block letters that felt friendly. The ER waiting room was full of people trying not to look at one another. A toddler slept in a stroller with his mouth open. An older man watched a muted loop of weather news like he was studying for a test. I sat and then stood. I tried to text Linda, "I'm here," and watched the little bubble sit there, unsent, probably because the hospital is where radios go to die. A nurse in pale blue scrubs came out and found me with that homing ability nurses have. "Mr. Wilson? I'm Callie. Let's get you back." She smiled the way people who know bad news practice smiling. "Your wife is in examination 5. We walked past curtains and monitors and the beep that belongs to television but still happens in real life. Callie pushed open a door with her hip and said, "Here we are." Linda was on the gurney, propped up on a wedge pillow, leads on her chest and the kind of hospital blanket that's less about warmth and more about dignity. She looked small. Not fragile, Linda hates that word, but smaller than Linda who texts me pictures of produce that look like celebrities when she's at the farmer's market. "Hey," she said, trying to go for breezy and landing on guilty. "You didn't have to rush." "Of course I did," I said, and walked to her side and took her hand. It was warm. "What happened?" "I felt lightheaded at Bean House," she said. "Like a head rush that didn't stop. Then my chest felt tight like someone had wrapped plastic wrap around my ribs. The barista called an ambulance, which was dramatic." "Better dramatic than dumb," I said. "You look okay." "I am okay," she said, eyes doing the thing eyes do when they're trying to convince their mouth to believe them. "They're doing blood, EKG, the works." Callie checked the monitor like it had told her a secret. "Initial EKG looks good. Troponins are pending," she said, like we keep troponins on the top shelf at home. "Dr. Chen will be in." We nodded as if our nodding moved the blood through the machine faster. I looked at Linda. She looked at the clock. The clock did what clocks do, nothing helpful. Callie hesitated at the door like she remembered something she forgot to tell me. She said, and then, brightly, "Do you need water?" "I'm okay," I said. She left. We were alone. "What were you doing at Bean House?" I asked, because it's the kind of question that fills air in lives where small talk used to, and because it's Linda's place when she needs to rewrite her to-do list with nicer handwriting. "Meeting a client," she said. "No big deal." Before I could ask which client, the door opened again and a nurse I hadn't seen came in with a clipboard and the energy of someone ferrying messages between ships. "Hi, Linda," she said. "Just checking, are you comfortable? Can I get your partner anything?" Linda started. "I'm her husband," I said. The nurse's smile faltered, tiny, like someone pulled a thread. "Oh," she said. I'm sorry. I just spoke with, well, I just meant your support person." She recovered professional fast. "Would you like something to drink?" He seemed very worried. "He?" I said. She blinked twice and realized she had said a thing that didn't fit the room. "I'll get that water," she said, and slipped out like the door was a time machine. Linda looked at her hands. I looked at the heart monitor because it had numbers and none of them were opinion. "Did you come in alone?" I asked, voice steady enough to build a shelf on. Linda's breathing did a small misstep. "No," she said. "I came in with someone. From work. He walked me in." "Callie said ambulance," I said. "I didn't want to make a scene," she replied. "He was there. He drove me." "And he was very worried," I said, not unkind, just putting the tiles in the only order they would go. She swallowed. "Mark." The door opened again. Dr. Chen entered with a tablet and a posture that said she delivered everything from relief to endings today. She introduced herself, shook my hand, and explained treponins and protocols in a voice that made strangers feel like they could learn Latin in the waiting room. "The first set is negative," she said. "We'll do a second in an hour. Stress, dehydration, caffeine, all can cause these symptoms. We're cautious by default." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. Caution by default felt like a religion I could join. Dr. Chen examined Linda with a stethoscope that did not look cold but probably was. She asked questions that don't feel personal until your life depends on the answers: medications, family history, stress, sleep. Linda answered, and every time she said fine or normal, we both watched the word float and wonder where it would land. When Dr. Chen left, the room exhaled. Linda and I didn't. "Is he here?" I asked. Her eyes moved to the corner, toward the door like a person hoping a teacher won't call on them. "I told him to go," she said. "He wanted to stay. I told him you were on your way. You can watch a train coming for a long time and still be surprised when it hits you." "Who is he?" "A friend," she said, too fast, like a person who stepped wrong and tries to play it off. The door opened just enough for a head to poke in. It wasn't a head I knew. Late 30s, clean-shaven, hair you cut at 3-week intervals because you like things tidy. He looked at Linda, then at me, and did the math out loud with his face. "I wanted to make sure," he started, then stopped. "I should go." I looked at Linda. She looked at the blanket again, as if it had something written on it that could help. "Mark," she said. It wasn't a plea. It was a preamble. "Close the door," I told him, and he did, and the small click felt louder than a slammed one. "I'm not going to yell in a hospital," I said, "because rules are what you hang on to when the floor tilts. But you're going to talk. Not later. Now." She nodded. "It started months ago," she said, eyes on the wall clock like she could read numbers that would buy us more choices. "He's a vendor. We were working on the new outreach campaign. We talked. Then we kept talking. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became more. I told myself I was lonely. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself a lot of things." "How long?" I asked, because knowing is a relief in a wound. 4 months, she said. The number sat between us and did not negotiate. Outside, a stretcher squeaked past. Somewhere, a monitor beeped. Somewhere, a baby cried in the exact key that breaks your insides no matter whose kid it is. Inside, the air rearranged its molecules to make room for a new vocabulary. I leaned back in the chair that makes you feel like you forgot to be a better person. "Does Chloe know?" I asked. "No." Linda shook her head, the motion too small to count. "God, no." "She'll be here," I said. I texted her. Linda closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet and mad about it. I never meant for any of this to touch her, she said. It always touches them, I said. It touches everyone. The door knocked properly this time, and Linda's parents came in with the energy of a storm that is trying to decide if it's rain or hail. Eleanor went straight to the bedside with a familiar fuss, straightening the blanket that didn't need straightening, touching Linda's hair, clucking at the fourth tape like it was personally offensive. Frank stood near the foot of the bed, hands in his jacket pockets, a man trying to tuck his anger somewhere it won't scare the staff. "What happened?" Eleanor asked, voice already rehearsing a speech about stress and self-care and how this wouldn't have happened if Linda took those magnesium pills she swore by last spring. "She felt faint," I said. "They're running tests." "Good," Frank said, which is the closest he comes to affection in hospitals. He looked at Linda. "You okay, kid?" "I will be," she said, the kind of lie that becomes true if you say it softly enough. Callie came in like a referee who also does blood work. "We're going to draw another troponin," she said. "Just a small stick." She glanced at the room, counted the bodies, did the triage you can only do after years of families. "Limit 2, please," she said gently. "It's a small room." "I'll step out," I said, because the chair felt like a confession booth and I needed air. "Text me when the doctor comes back." In the hallway, the man who had poked his head and stood near the exit sign, staring at his shoes like they had brought him here and then betrayed him. He looked up when I stepped out and did the polite maneuver of giving me space he could not actually give. "I shouldn't have come," he said. "You shouldn't have," I agreed. She got dizzy and he stopped. "I don't want to make this worse." "You don't get to decide that," I said. My voice surprised me again. It wasn't loud. It wasn't kind. It was the voice you use when a contractor lies about permits. He nodded like I had told him the weather and he had no umbrella. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what it's worth." "It isn't," I said, and walked the other direction because sometimes dignity is spatial. Chloe texted, "On my way." 10 minutes. Then, "Is she okay?" I typed back, "Looks like it." They're checking. Chloe is 19 and smarter than I was at 19. She doesn't use extra punctuation. She doesn't ask questions she doesn't want answers to. I found the vending machines in the family waiting area and bought a bottle of water for Linda and a Snickers for myself because my therapist once told me to keep protein in my pocket when life tilts, and even if she meant almonds, chocolate with peanuts counts. I took 2 bites and threw the rest away because my mouth had decided everything tasted like pennies. When I went back, Eleanor was in full mother mode, flipping through a magazine she wasn't reading. Frank stood at the window, staring at the parking lot like he could move cars with his mind. Linda looked at the TV mounted in the corner, where a daytime show host laughed at a thing that was not funny. "Where's Chloe?" Eleanor asked. "Soon," I said. Eleanor shifted her attention from the blanket to me. "This is stress," she announced. "You can't run a household and work and ferry everyone everywhere and not fall down sometimes. She does too much. She always has." Linda looked like she might speak, then didn't. Frank cleared his throat. "There's stress," he said, "and then there's choices." He looked at me, and there was a whole other conversation in his eyes. I've known Frank 25 years. He knows where to put a nail and when to shut up. He was not shutting up. Eleanor's head snapped toward him. "Frank." "Not here," Linda said, sudden and sharp. "Please. Not here." "Here's exactly where this is," Frank said, softer. "Hospital or kitchen table, it's the same story." Callie came back in like a diplomat who knows where the red lines are. "Good news," she said. "Second troponin is negative. Drive. Chen will discharge you with instructions. Hydrate. Rest. Follow up with your PCP. If symptoms recur, come back. Okay?" We all nodded as if an order had been given and we were grateful to be told what to do. Chloe arrived with hair that said she had walked fast across campus. She looked at her mother, then at me, then at her grandparents. "What happened?" "Not a heart attack," I said. "Okay," she said, and put her hand on Linda's arm in a gesture that was equal parts child and adult. "You scared me." "I'm sorry," Linda said, and her voice broke in a place that had nothing to do with blood chemistry. Chloe looked at me again, the question under the question there. I didn't answer it. Not there. Not yet. Discharge in a hospital is a slow process that feels fast: papers, signatures, a plastic bag for your belongings, because even if you came in by car with a purse, you leave like you got rescued from a ship. I helped Linda sit up and swing her legs over the side, the way you do for a person you know well enough to lift without asking where they're ticklish. She stood, steady. The monitor beeped its last and went quiet, offended. We walked out into air that tasted like relief and exhaust. I helped Linda into the passenger seat because ritual matters, and so does the small theater of care. Eleanor leaned in and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Come by tomorrow," she said. "I'll make soup." Frank nodded at me. It was the nod he gave me the day I asked him for his daughter's hand and the day I borrowed his truck. "I see you. I expect you to be the person you say you are." Then he put his hand on the roof of the car and said to Linda, "We'll talk." At home, the house smelled faintly of the garage and the oil I hadn't finished changing. I helped Linda upstairs. "Do you want to lie down?" I asked. "I want to not be in my own skin for 15 minutes, she said. "But lying down is a good second place." She lay on the bed on top of the covers like a child who plans to deny she slept if anyone asks. I sat in the chair by the window, because the bed was for people who agreed on what beds are for. She looked at the ceiling, I looked at the tree outside, where a squirrel had decided our gutter was a thoroughfare. "Were you going to tell me?" I asked finally. "I told myself I would," she said. "Eventually." Which is the same as no. "Does he love you?" I asked, not because I wanted to rank my pain but because the question was trying to burn its way out of my throat. "He loves that I started laughing at his jokes," she said. "He loves the pieces of me that he doesn't have to pick up when I drop them. He loves the version of me that doesn't have a 19-year-old and a mortgage and a history. That's not love. That's a vacation." I let the words sit. I wanted to hate her for the clarity, I didn't. "And you?" "I loved being seen," she said. "I hated lying. Those two things were at war. The wrong one won." The door clicked. Chloe stood there, a teenager caught between allegiance and triage. "Do you need anything?" she asked Linda, the question formal, polite, not intimate. "No," Linda said. "Thank you." Chloe nodded, then looked at me. "Can we talk later?" "Yeah," I said. "We will." Linda closed her eyes. "Mark," she said. "I know sorry is a small word." She opened them again. "I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "It's also the only one available." That night, after soup from Eleanor and 3 texts from Frank that were all versions of "I'm here when you're ready," after Chloe went to a study group she probably did not study at, after Linda moved to the guest room without us naming it that, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and made a list. Lists are how I put linoleum over holes in my life. No contact. Therapist. Doctor follow-up. Tell Chloe the truth once. Don't turn the house into a trial. Sleep, underlined, because my body forgets. Linda came downstairs after a shower, hair damp, face pale in a way that had nothing to do with fainting. "Do you want me to go to my parents?" she asked. "No," I said. "You're not running. You'll sleep down the hall. We'll call Drive. Weiss in the morning. And we'll tell Chloe what she deserves to know, the facts and the plan. Not the autopsy." She nodded. "Okay." I added one more line to the list: Chloe is not our therapist. The next day, we sat Chloe at the table, the 3 of us like people who'd missed a rehearsal for a show and were trying to remember blocking. Linda spoke first, because she needed to, and because Chloe needed to hear the apology land where it belonged. My daughter listened with her jaw set like armor. She asked exactly 3 questions: how long? Who? Are you stopping? The answers were ugly, specific, and yes. Then she stood, went to the sink, ran water for a glass she didn't need, and said, "I'm mad." We said okay. She added, "I'm not picking sides. But I'm not protecting you." We said okay again. The day after, we saw Drive. Weiss, who explained the science of fainting and the math of stress and said words like benign that are better than chocolate. He told Linda to walk, to drink water, to sleep, to recognize that shame feels like a heart problem sometimes. He told me to remember that caretakers burn out too. He told us both to get counseling, which we already had on my legal pad. Mara, the counselor, sat us on a sofa that had seen worse and asked us to pick two non-negotiables. I said no contact and full transparency. Linda said no lying and no punishing. We wrote them down, signed and dated like a tiny treaty. Frank came by with a toolbox and fixed a door that had been sticking since the summer, because that is how our people show love. Eleanor dropped off actual chicken soup and told me, on the porch where the neighbors could see, that marriage is hard and that people do stupid things when their loneliness lies to them. She also told me that her heart hurt for me in a way she couldn't fix. She hugged me with her whole body the way she did when Chloe was born and Linda fell asleep sitting up on the couch because Chloe only slept on chests. The man, vendor, work friend, whatever noun lets me get to the next sentence, texted Linda once, to say he hoped she was okay. She put the phone face down on the table and slid it to me. I texted back, no contact. Then I blocked the number. Then I called the company and asked that he be reassigned from the account. The woman on the line said she understood. She sounded like someone who had understood this before for other people. Chloe started answering Linda's check-in texts with single words, okay, fine, later. The night she sent thanks because Linda left a mug of tea outside her door, Linda cried in the guest room into a pillow and then came out and watched a cooking show with me in a fragile piece that tasted like quiet. 3 weeks later, the hospital bill came, facility fee, EKG interpretation, for supplies. You can measure a crisis in dollars as well as days. We paid it from the account where we keep the boring money for tires and roofing and things that do not make for good stories but make for good sleep. I don't have a neat ending. We are a house with 2 coffee mugs in the sink every morning again, but one of them sits closer to the edge than before. Linda goes to the gym and the grocery and the counselor in a rotation that feels like rehab for a life. I go to work and answer emails that aren't about my marriage and sometimes aren't even about anything that matters. Chloe studies and works and comes home for dinner more often than she used to, not because we asked but because she can see the rooms where we're trying and she is letting us be seen. Sometimes, around midnight, I take out the legal pad and add to the list, be kind without being a doormat, be clear without being cruel. Chloe first, sleep. I underline sleep again. Last Sunday, we drove past Street. Mary's on our way to Eleanor and Frank's for pot roast. I felt my chest do a phantom tightness, the kind that has nothing to do with arteries. Linda reached across the console and touched my wrist for 3 seconds and then let go, like a person asking to be allowed back in 1 inch at a time. I didn't flinch. That felt like something. At dinner, Eleanor made too much gravy on purpose. Frank told a story about a job site from 1996 like it had just happened. Chloe passed the roles without being asked. When the conversation got quiet, I thought of Kelly's face when I said I'm her husband, and how a stranger knowing a truth about your life before you say it out loud stings in a particular way. Then I looked at my family and thought, we are still here. The truth isn't the only thing that hurts, sometimes it's the only thing that heals. I won't make promises I don't believe. I won't tell you we are better than ever. I will tell you Linda hasn't fainted again. I will tell you that when my phone rings with an unknown number, I still answer, and my hands still get slick, and sometimes it's just a guy about the car warranty. I will tell you Chloe laughed in our kitchen last night at a joke that wasn't that funny and it sounded like a door opening. And I will tell you that the hospital is a place where people go to get saved, and that night, in a dumb, tragic, useful way, something in our house did. We are not fixed. We are not finished. We are practicing being ordinary together again, which is harder than anybody warns you and maybe the bravest thing we've ever done. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.